Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable. Happy Mom Day, Jen.
Happy Mom Day, Karlee.
It's a beautiful day. Well, it's somewhat beautiful. It's quite smoky.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's so many wildfires happening. Not really close to us, but close enough that it's concerning.
Yeah, quite close. Like hours away.
Yeah,
but it's not like
we're not in evacuation zones or anything like that. But
it's hitting close to home.
Yeah.
We're very worried about our fellow BC interior folks.
I mean, there's more fires happening too up north, like in northern Canada too, and they're getting really bad, and people have been evacuated, and they're also losing homes. So it's not just Kelowna
and
the
Maui.
Interior fires. Maui has there's so many things happening right now around the world that it's very sad. So, yeah,
very sad. Climate control.
Yeah,
that issu's real.
You said you had something you wanted to talk about this morning. I do.
So I was listening to a podcast this morning. It was actually the first time I ever listened to it. It's called Quitted by Holly Whitaker and Emily McDowell, you said?
Yeah.
So they were talking about underpanties. And one of the girls...
Underpanties? I don't think I've ever heard anyone say underpanties.
Well, there's panties and underwear, undies. I'm usually an undie gal. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I call them undies too. Yeah. I've just never heard of underpanties.
Well,
I think that's new. I think you made that up. Okay,
I'm pretty original.
Yeah.
So one of the gals was saying she wore the same clothes as the day before, but changed her underwear. And then the other girl was saying, well, I don't wear underwear. So, and then it got me thinking, like, if you're not an underwear person and then you get pregnant, do you change that? Because pregnancy is swampy. It's,
No, like,
so are you an underwear gal?
No.
Oh,
No, and I'm still not an underwear person, but I do agree.
You're not wearing underwear right now?
No. But I do agree that in pregnancy and at a certain point in pregnancy and a certain point postpartum, you have to wear underwear.
Yeah, I think it's
because it is
logistics.
But at this point, it's not that swampy. So, I mean, all's good. But I agree that yes. So at one point, you do need to just wear underwear, and I just have to deal with it.
I don't like washing pants, and I will wear them endlessly until there's like visible stains that I can't get out with a baby wipe. So do you have to wash your pants all the time then? Because like your pants are now your underpants.
Yeah, you can't wear them that often because,
But then what if you wear your pants, like you wear them more than once?
Yeah.
I guess it's not like in there the way that underwear is.
Underwear is up there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, depending on the type of underwear you wear.
All underwear is up there for me.
Okay, so it's not just a personal preference, it's also health reasons.
Yeah, for you.
There's a little bit more to why I don't wear underwear, and I need a lot of airflow, and I need to wear not tight-fitting pants.
You could wear crotchless panties.
I mean, what would be the point? Really, honestly, it would just piss me off, like feeling things on my around my hips. I would not enjoy that. And so I have to wear like loose pants, and not wearing underwear is beneficial for health reasons. Yeah. So I mean, a little bit of personal preference and a little bit of
it's not a comfort thing. But some people don't wear them because they just don't like them. And I don't know. I'm an underwear gal. I don't know if I've ever gone, what's it called? Not commando. There's a funny name for it.
Commando is a name for it. I don't know any other name for it.
Anyways, I don't know. It'll come to me tonight when I'm sleeping.
Okay.
I'll be like, that's what it's called when you don't wear underwear. But yeah, interesting.
But you do have a good point. You do need to wear underwear at some point in your pregnancy and postpartum.
Yeah. And if you're pregnant and you're going to the hospital, please don't wear a thong. I mean, if you're early on, that's fine. But if you go in and you're like, oh, I think my water broke. People show up in thongs and we give them these, the pads are not small. They're literally bigger than your head. And then they're wearing a G-string. And I'm like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So
I don't even think any of my thongs fit when I was that pregnant. I wouldn't be able to fit in any of them anyways. So... I mean, Nick's high-rise underwear are the leak proof too, so it absorbs all that stuff, and it's room for the pets.
Yeah, the Nick's underwear are the only ones that fit me from beginning to end of pregnancy to postpartum.
Yeah,
all others they either stretched and got so many holes in them, or just didn't fit. So
yeah, that's right. I did wear the Nick's. Yeah, all throughout. Yeah,
shameless plug for the old Nixies.
Yeah, they're great.
Okay, what are we talking about today, Jen?
Today is milestones, which just saying the word already causes me stress.
I know, it makes me want to throw up.
It is just an uncomfortable topic, and for a lot of moms, it causes a lot of stress and anxiety, and that's kind of why we wanted to talk about it today.
Definitely. There's a lot of, even just bringing up milestones, it's it hits you in the gut. It's a reflection of your parenting and ability to parent and ability to make children. But it's not.
No.
But
and
so many of us
every baby is
it.
unique.
Every baby's unique. Yeah. So before we go on to the whole the whole milestone chat, we just want to say, we want to hold space for mamas that this is very triggering for, or anybody who has experienced challenges in this area, either with like a suspected or confirmed delay, like a developmental delay. And it is not, meeting milestones is not a reflection of your parenting at all. And like Jen said, every baby is so different emotionally, physically. There's nothing wrong if your baby is, or your kid is meeting milestones differently. They're just guidelines. And the same way that every brain works differently, and every body moves and functions differently, and they all look different, and
everyone has a very unique timeline that's just for them. And
definitely,
it's very easy to get caught up in, they need to know this by this age, this age, this age, they need to do this, they need to do this. But there's this meme, and we talk about it all the time, and it's something that I remind myself is like, by the time a certain point in life comes around, like the meme is about kindergarten, that you don't actually know who was breastfed, who rolled first, who crawled first, who walked first. Like, none of that matters. Like, what matters is that they're going and they're going to learn, and they're all there. Like,
definitely.
Yeah.
For sure. We're actually, and I think that meme ends in they're all going to eat fries off the floor anyways.
A different meme, but yes. Those are the two slides that come together. The breastfed, formula fed, and the two slides meet together of like they're all going to eat McDonald's French fries off the floor.
All of our babies are eating puffs off the floor already.
Yes.
Floor puffs are Henry's favorites.
Yeah.
I was also going to say the milestone chat and just like having babies kind of on a schedule and timeline is very rooted in like ableism in our society and sexism and racism and all of that. We're not going to get into that today, but that's like, there's a whole political side to it too. Stressing about them can be so scary and isolating and just so stressful for those moms and dads and parents that it can rob you of your joy in parenthood.
Totally. And sometimes you won't even want to leave the house. Like, you're not going to go out with your mom friends anymore because if all they're doing is talking about like, oh, he rolled over today. Oh, she rolled over this time. She rolled over then. And you're like, well, crap, like my baby hasn't rolled over. And then you start feeling embarrassed or shamed or like you're not doing good enough as a mom because they're not meeting this threshold or this, milestone. And then you stop going to these events because you don't want to hear those conversations, which I don't blame you for. Yeah, but then that also doesn't help your stress and anxiety if you stop going and spending time with these people and
isolating
yourself. It's just this terrible cycle, right? When you start to feel these thoughts and you start avoiding other people and avoiding other moms of other babies and you just kind of avoid the topic, that's also not healthy either. So
for sure. And you can do that with so many things, with sleep, with feeding, with all of it. We don't want you to isolate yourself. Yes. But the reason we do want to talk about this milestones today is not to like trigger you or stress you out or make you feel like you're not doing enough, but we just want to talk about it to normalize that like it's normal to, it's very common to stress and be worried and concerned. Yes. And it's also like quite common for them not to follow like the linear progression. Totally. And sometimes we'll do some early and some late. We have a mom friend whose baby started sleeping through the night at 8 weeks, but then didn't get a tooth until like 10 months. And like neither of those are a reflection on her as a mom or him as a baby. But it was just, that's just
great
him.
That he slept early and then he just didn't get a tooth till later. And like, whereas Jordan got her first tooth like before 5 months old. So and then she didn't sleep through the night until recently. So, I mean, every baby is so different, but they're all growing and they're happy and healthy. And that's what matters. So we're going to actually go through in some of our friend group. We reached out and we wanted to just see what are the actual months? Like, can you remember and write down the months for these specific milestones? And what we saw was that there's a huge range. It's normally months of a range that any baby reached a milestone. And so when you actually look at the chart of when they should hit this milestone, and then you look at us and our chart of our friend group of when they were hitting milestones, they don't compare. They're not the same. No, it's just a point of like, as long as your baby is developing and growing at their own rate, like that is good. Don't stress too much about that time specific charts that you can find online.
Because even everywhere you look online, the times are different.
Totally. We could Google it 5 times and give 5 different answers of when they're supposed to get their first tooth or when they're supposed to say their first word. It's different on every site you look.
For sure.
Yeah.
So before we move on, we just kind of to sum it up, we want to talk about this today. So if you do have concerns, you can reach out and get the support that you do need, either for yourself, if you're stressed, or actually for your child, if you have concerns about their development.
I mean, often they will ask you in doctor's appointments, like, they don't ask you kind of specific. I find my doctor asks in like roundabout ways, and I like that because she's not putting specific emphasis on one specific milestone. She just kind of asks like, generally, what is she doing these days? Like, what kinds of things does she like to play with? And, you know, and then she might ask a specific question if she needs to, but I like the way she words it. But, you know, they kind of do little check-ins for you to make sure things are progressing. And only if they're really concerned are they going to say something. So as long as you're answering those questions, your child is growing, they're learning new things.
For sure, you're good to go.
Try not to stress. I know it's so much easier said than done. And we both have had several stressors about this and messages in our group chats about like, guys, I don't know. Henry isn't doing this yet. And Jordan just did this. And I don't know. Is that okay? And we all stress about it. But we just recognize that it's not the healthiest to stress about it. No. So we just wanted to go through some of that today. So why don't you give us the definition of a milestone?
So we looked it up on the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. They have a nice little, very succinct definition.
Yeah.
So developmental milestones are things most children can do by a certain age. That's it. So children reach milestones in how they play, how they learn, they speak, they act, and how they move.
Yeah.
So essentially it's a timeline.
There are so many different milestones too. If you get into it, like, how they speak, how they act, how they learn. Like, there's so many different types that when you look up the charts, it gets very overwhelming. Yeah. So I don't actually recommend looking up the charts. Answer your doctors or your healthcare professionals' questions. Like, make sure that they're growing and learning new things. And try not to get too caught up in all of these charts and, you know, writing down specifics of when they're doing things. It just gets too much.
It does get too much. So let's talk about, we did a little survey. We're scientists now, researchers in our friend group. Just, what was there, like 6 of them that we asked?
Yeah.
And just to get, like, anecdotally a little information about the ranges. So why don't you tell us about the ranges in our friend groups?
Okay, so the first one we did was when did they get their first tooth? And so in our friend group, it ranged from 4.5 months old to 11 months old.
11, yeah.
So that's a huge range, right? Like that's 6 months, over 6 months of a difference. Definitely. And Jordan got like 7 teeth by the time she was probably 6 months old. So it's like 7 teeth by 6 months old. And some babies didn't get even 1 till 11. Yeah. So that's a huge different range.
Henry had 8 by the time he was 10 months. So before even they had 1.
I know. Like how can you... And so the recommended range on this is about 6 to 10 months is when they get their first tooth. Okay. So a month and a half before the recommended range, one of the babies got a tooth. So it just goes to show you that it doesn't really matter. And then the range is 6 to 10, I believe, for a first tooth. And again, we know someone who had their first tooth at 11 months.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Is he like...
He's not delayed.
He's not delayed. He's a happy baby. Like he's happy as can be. Like, I mean, there's a positive of this. You didn't have to deal with teething for 11 months. Yeah. So there's pros and cons to all of these things, but that's just a big range. So
for sure.
Yeah. What's the next one?
So rolling is the next one. The internet's kind of vague on this one. It just kind of says they can roll both directions around by 6 months.
Yes.
And our range was huge. It was 3.5 to 7 months. So Henry started rolling one way around like 4 months, but then he didn't roll back to front until he was 7 months old. To the point that like I was actually getting concerned. I was like, he's never going to roll. He's never going to do it. He was such a potato. And then one day he started and now I can't stop him.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And Jordan rolled she was 3 weeks old the first time she rolled over. And I was like, well, did she roll over? We were filming it and we're like, can you believe it? She's rolling over. And we actually took her to the chiropractor and we were taking her for the tongue tie and other reasons. And we told her and we showed her and she did it at the chiropractor. And she's like, that's not actually rolling over. I was like, what do you mean? She rolled over. She said it's just because of tension. Like birth can be a very traumatic process on babies.
And the tongue tie.
And the tongue tie and different things. And so developmentally, they can get a lot of stress and like muscular like tension and things going on. So she's like, her body is just so tense that like she just kind of flopped her head one way and her whole body rolled with it.
Yeah.
And she's
there
like,
was no looseness.
This doesn't actually count. She didn't intentionally roll. Like she didn't know the mechanics of it. And so we don't count the 3 weeks old, but she did roll at 3 weeks.
I think we should count it.
So it was about 3.5 months when she actually knew how to roll for like actually using it properly, like techniques, I guess.
Yeah. I just realized you're wearing the maternity shirt that I wore all the time with Henry.
I am wearing your maternity shirt.
All the joys. That's great. I put that thing to good use.
Okay. The next one is sitting unassisted. Mm-hmm. So in our group, it was 5 to 6.5 months.
Yeah.
And which is actually before it's on the recommended range is 7 months.
Oh, interesting.
So almost all the babies could sit unassisted before the recommended range. Again, we're not saying your baby needs to or if they do it after. And we're just trying to show that what is recommended and what we saw in our friend group are just two totally different things.
For sure. Yeah. And then crawling, we also had a big range here.
Yeah.
So the interwebs say around 9 months, and we had a range from 6 to 10.5 months.
Yeah.
Which feels like a huge gap because from 6 months to 10.5 months, there's so much development.
Yeah.
But even crawling at 10.5 months isn't considered like delayed in any way.
No.
And that was actually the biggest baby of the group. So like, poor guy, he's got a lot to carry around.
Yeah, there's just so many different reasons.
Yeah.
So standing furniture walking, again, the chart says at about 12 months, and we saw 7 to 11 months. So a lot of them were walking beforehand. And I know I've also read online that gender plays a role in like their ability to walk and when they walk.
Girls
and their
develop
timelines.
faster.
Apparently girls, they end up walking faster than boys do for whatever reason.
And we did see that in our group, that all of the girls seem to hit the physical, like the motor milestones sooner.
Yes.
All of the other ones were kind of just averages, but the girls were crawling first. They were sitting first. They were the ones that are walking.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. And then first steps, a lot of them have not done it yet. Yeah. Like the earliest is about 11 months. Jordan is just starting to do it now. And I think she's one of the only ones.
I think Mel's taken a few.
Okay.
And Noah,
Mel
but he's
and
over
Noah's
one.
starting too. But a lot of it is 11 plus months and still as a year old, still not taking their first steps.
Yeah. Fun fact. I was not walking. My mom says running at 8.5 months old.
Which is insane. It says here 12 months online. So how could you have ran at 8.5 months?
You know what? And the thing is, like, she's not lying because like she doesn't give a crap. Like she doesn't care.
What did she gain from lying about that fun fact?
And like people always say like, oh yeah, my kid was walking at this age. And like, most of the time people are exaggerating a little bit. And I asked her the other day, I was like, actually, when was I walking? I think she said just after 8 months is when I started taking steps. Yeah. And she said that I just didn't walk. I just like learned and then I just started sprinting. And you know what? 8.5 months and I have not stopped moving since. Yeah. So
there you go.
Yeah. Crazy. Can you imagine?
No,
Henry?
I could not imagine.
I can't even.
No.
Bless our kids for not doing that.
Yes.
What's next? So first word. Yeah.
Yeah. So this one's around 12 months is the recommended or suggested milestone age. And we saw a huge range, 5 months to still not doing this at almost a year old. We're just now thinking that Jordan is actually saying dada and like knows what she's saying.
Yeah, like being intentional.
Because she always made noises and like, what's
sounds?
the term? Like babbling. Yeah. She'd always babble, but like it was nonsense. And I don't think she knew what she was saying. She was just making different noises. But now she's being a bit more intentional with it and like doing it in the correct time. So we're like, okay, I think we're going to count this as our first word is dada. But it's, yeah.
And it says
a huge range.
The internet does say around a year is when they start applying meaning to those words. Yes. So Henry likes to do this thing where I'm like, can you say mama? And he goes, da, 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 da. And I'm like, I'm not counting that. Yeah. he doesn't know. It's just a fun sound.
Okay, these two I added in here because I was mad. I watched Miss Rachel and I saw it was on a Miss Rachel one. I don't know which video, but it said on there clapping was a 9-month milestone. I was like, holy crap, my daughter's 11 months and she's not anywhere close to clapping. Like we've never put a lot of effort into it, but like she doesn't do it. And then I freaked out that we were delayed and I'm behind and I'm a bad mom because I didn't work on this with her and I should have known that this should have been a 9-month. Like I just went down the rabbit hole.
As we do.
So we looked and a lot of babies aren't clapping or waving yet. And then some of them started around 8 or 9 months. And online it says around 11 months old is what we actually found. So Miss Rachel was actually wrong.
She's just keen.
I mean, I like Miss Rachel. Jordan likes Miss Rachel, but this was wrong.
Maybe the Miss Rachel babies clap sooner because
maybe they're special. Yeah. But we found, it was around 8.5 months that a couple of them started clapping and waving. But generally speaking, it was closer to a year that they actually started clapping and waving, like consistently and knowing what they were doing.
Yeah. So. I mean, Henry, he just started doing it one day. He was like clapping and I'm like, I didn't teach him that. And so I was like, maybe he's just doing it because it's fun, but he'll do it if you do it. And then same with waving. I was waving bye to somebody and he just starts waving. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like maybe he's been watching, but I've never been like, we wave goodbye. So
here I am every day. I'm like, Jordan, clap, clap. And I look like an idiot every day. I take stuffed animals and I clap their hands. And still she just looks at me and
like, Mom, stop. I will do it when I want. We have it twice now.
She's actually clapped, but and it's a hard thing to come by. And
that just shows
waving,
that.
We work on it really hard and she still doesn't really want to do it. Yet all these other things she was one of the first to do. And these things she doesn't seem to want to do. So
she's like, Mom, I don't want to do fine motor skills. I only do gross motor skills.
Yes, that's all she wants. I think she just really wants to work on walking right now. So that's her biggest focus. But
that just shows that the effort you put in to try and like the effort and stress you put in to try to get them to meet milestones doesn't always come out in them actually doing them at all.
So hopefully that just kind of showed like, yes, there can be all these charts and you can look at them, but it can all just be BS too. Like none of it's super accurate. There's huge ranges of 6+ months in between some babies, differences of when they learn things. I think for my sister, my cousin, my sister's baby, I think she didn't roll over till she was like close to a year or something like that. Like she was very delayed comparatively to Jordan. And so it was just very weird seeing the differences. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with my niece. She is a happy, healthy, crazy, full of energy child. And like, she just didn't want to move. She was just a potato. She liked just laying there.
Just like Henry. He was having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for some of the milestones, like you can't will your way into them getting a tooth or will your way into them sleeping, as we've learned.
Yes.
But there are some things you can actually do to, I don't want to, like, to encourage motor development and also to prevent delays that are preventable. So some delays aren't preventable, but there are babies who will have delays because they don't spend time on the floor. They spend too long in like the baby containers and that. We're not saying they're bad in any way. We love them. But there are things you can do to just encourage their development. So we're going to kind of talk about some of those things. Yeah. And they're not things that we like had to time or like you don't have to kill yourself doing these. Yes, like you just things.
Things to think of. Things to keep in the back of your mind. The first one being tummy time, to actually start it as soon as you can. And they say like day 1 from the hospital, you can start tummy time, which I didn't intentionally start tummy time for months probably. Like she was on me and like would lay on my stomach, which would kind of count as tummy time.
It does,
like,
because in the first month, or until they can lift their head on their own, I've heard you don't want to put baby on a mat. You never want to leave them unsupervised, but you don't want them down on the floor until they can lift their head on their own. So for the first, I don't know, when they lift their head, like a month-ish, you just do it on your chest and you lay back. And so you were doing it right. You just,
It just, when you look online, you're like, I need to do tummy time, and it gets really stressful. But just allowing time for them to actually be on the ground and learn how their neck moves and like learning where their arms placements are and their legs. And
for sure.
So tummy time, just starting it as soon as you can is an important one.
And then another one as they get older is like just unrestricted floor time. So just having them on the floor, either on their tummy or even just on their back. You can put them under one of those little like the play mats. I don't know what the real name is.
Play mat with like little
gyms with the little things at the beginning. They'll just kind of like look at them, and then eventually they'll start kind of reaching, and they just like lay there for the first bit. But this is the like them being unrestricted is really good for their development.
They can just learn, try new things.
For sure. And then with that kind of goes like limiting the time in things like baby containers, like swings and bouncers and exercisers. We loved them. We used them. I
was going to say this, it like triggers me when people say limit your time in containers, because that just stresses me out. And I'm like, no, you can use containers. You can use them properly and appropriately. There's time restrictions. Like the Jolly Jumper has a time restriction of 15 minutes. Listen to that. Like there's a reason there's a time restriction. Make sure their head and neck is aligned properly. Like don't just let them lay there with kinked necks in their containers. Like as long as you're using it properly and you're giving them unrestricted floor time, that's what matters.
The combo of the two is key, because you need, like we loved the baby bouncer in the kitchen for the first like couple of months, because otherwise I couldn't do anything. And he loved it too, because he's learning, he's looking around, he's watching things.
They could still reach. Like mine had a little like arm with dangly things, so she was still looking and playing, and she'd hit it. So like she's still developing.
For sure.
And so containers aren't this terrible thing that people make them out to be. Just you do want to give them unrestricted like time that they have access to all of their limbs and can move as they want on the floor.
Do a little bit of A, a little bit of B. Yeah. You need the combo. Another thing we did a lot was watching or following on Instagram professionals in this area. So pediatric OTs, like occupational therapists and PTs, physios, following those accounts for ideas. Some of them are very like judgy Judy, and those ones unfollow. Yes, but some of them are so helpful. They're like, these are things you can do that are also playtime, but good for their development. So like I learned how to get them to encourage sitting. So like you put their legs wide, like make a wide base, put a toy in front of them. Yeah. And they like it because they like learning new skills, but they're not like, you must do this for 20 minutes a day.
It actually helped me because I felt like I would just be bored at home with my baby. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Do we just stare at each other? Like I didn't know what to do with my baby. And maybe that sounds funny. But like
they're potatoes. You don't know what to do.
We used to message each other like, what are you doing during this wake window? Because I'm out of ideas. Like I've already read a book and they don't seem to care. Like, you know, like you run out of ideas. And so when you watch these videos, so it's good for them to learn new things. And they explain normally the reason why you're doing these activities, but just doing these, it gives you ideas for new activities to do with your baby. That's fun.
And there's a ton of YouTube videos. There's a ton of Instagram videos with great ideas for tummy time, for different ways you can do it. Like, you don't have to have them on the floor. You can actually carry them around in your arm. Yeah. And as long as they're on their tummy and they're having to work on their little neck muscles, that counts. So there's
propped on pillows. Yeah. On your knees too, like across your lap. There's lots of other ways. And then that way they're touching you. And so some babies, it's more comfortable for them because they're still close to you. Because if you just plop them on the floor and walk away, some babies don't like that.
We just have to do the butt pats. So we'd put him across our lap or on the floor, and then as long as we were playing the bum drums, he'd be okay. So happy. Yeah. But I learned that on YouTube. Yeah. So I just want to say, if you're following people that make you feel sad or funny or incompetent or not good enough, unfollow. Follow the ones that make you feel good and like inspire you and make you feel like, ooh, this is creative and fun. Yeah. For sure. And you get into the next one here.
Yeah. So the next one is actually going to a chiropractor or PT or an occupational therapist. We started going because of like all the tongue ties. We started going to a chiropractor. I didn't even know that was a thing that you did with babies. Like, it was something new that I had learned.
And ones that specialize in infants.
And ones that specialize in infant care. And for us to get your tongue tie revision done, you needed to work with how did they word it? It was like a body work specialist in infants. And so we both went to the same place here in Maple Ridge Wellness. They were great. Saw Dr. Amanda. I think most of the time you also saw Dr. Amanda.
Yeah, I've only seen her.
And she's great. And so they're also doula trained. Like, they have a lot of extra training, not just their like infant chiropractic training. And so she would go over,
and they're doctors,
yeah. But she would go over like, okay, this is what Jordan's doing. Great. Like, here are some things you can work on at home before I see you next. And it was just like little tips and tricks that we could try at home. They would show us, she would demonstrate it. They'd have different props and like different baby things there that they would show us how to use. And it was really good because they're super knowledgeable in this. Like, they've studied this a lot. They see babies, like several babies a day, all doing this. And they just, they're educated and knowledgeable. It's their
and
specialty.
Empowering. I often would go and be feeling stressed that either like I'm not doing enough or he's not developing fast enough. And I would go and she would point out all of the things that were going well. Yes. And even when there weren't ever concerns with him, but his head shape was like he was more flat on one side. I felt so much guilt and stress. And it was just because he had tightness on one side and he slept facing one side all the time. And I felt so guilty. And when we went, she was like, you're here, you're doing the right thing. It's early enough. We can work on this. Yep. Like these are some things you can do at home. And like what she was doing there, like they don't do like adjustments and like the manipulation. It's just like soft tissue. They use little machines with the little, what's that thing? Like the Theragun thing.
It's like a Theragun, but they don't even put it directly on the baby. They put it on their arm and then they touch the baby. So there's little mini vibrations. It's quite interesting.
It's very gentle and they're so small. They just need little touch. And I've never gone and felt like worse about myself when I left. Yes. And sometimes I would go and be like, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't done any of the activities that you suggested. Yeah. And she's like, that's fine. And I always just felt really empowered. And also that like I'm doing something to help facilitate development and also just make sure, like having somebody monitor him, making sure that we're not missing anything because family doctors are great, but they're also not specialists in infant like motor development. Yes. And then also if something did come up, we already had that relationship with a healthcare professional that would either be able to refer us or help us. So if it is accessible because it is expensive. Yes. If you have coverage, like we've had all of ours 100% coverage because Henry is on both of our extended benefits plans. So if you have coverage, actually look into it because you'll be surprised how much coverage you can have. Totally. And then it's like, it's not free because somebody's paying for it, but it doesn't cost you anything. And
it's really good. Like as just a general rule, a general thought here is that when you have a baby to look at your actual dependent coverage, because obviously it was our first child. I had zero idea what coverage we had. So I made a point of like looking at certain items and being like, okay, so like dental work, because we had to get the tongue tie and that's done by a dentist. And I didn't know what we had coverage for. And, so actually looking and knowing what you have coverage for. Some people have lactation support. So if you have coverage through that, I mean, we already are pro on using lactation support, but especially I didn't have coverage. So I paid out of pocket. But if you have coverage, why not use it? Like some people have coverage on buying, pumping machines.
Pumps.
And those are expensive. Very expensive. So if you can get that covered, Like,
some people even have coverage to hire sleep trainers if they
Yes.
have a credential. So sometimes they're
Yes.
occupational therapists or social workers or
Yes.
nurses. And if you have coverage for any of that,
Yeah.
you can actually get coverage for a sleep trainer.
Yeah.
If that's something you're into.
naturopaths can do a lot of
Yeah.
work with infant care, especially allergies.
Yeah.
And it's like we had coverage for naturopaths, so now we can go see her for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just really good to know what coverage you actually have and if any of these kind of extras are covered, because we have found them beneficial.
Definitely. And Dr. Amanda and Dr. Zara are the ones at Maple Ridge Wellness.
Yes.
But we've either had friends who've gone to other practitioners, not for chiro, but for things like naturopathic medicine, physio,
Yes.
massage. So if you're
Yeah.
local and you want some recommendations, send us a DM and we'll help you out.
We know lots of people.
We know the
in the
people.
lower mainland, I guess,
Yeah.
in general. We know lots of really good places that you can go get good infant support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll get some of these people on the pod.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
some in the works, so
Yes.
it's very exciting. So yeah, those are just a couple of the things that we kind of we're doing to try to help our babies as much as we can. But at the end of the day, they're all going to do it at their own pace, and you can't force them into doing anything. Like, you can practice all you want, and they might not want to do it. Like, Henry just loved laying there. Like, he would
happy
just
potato.
sit and watch all the other babies like move it around, and he just loved it. He would just watch, and he was so happy. He was totally content. Like, he wasn't fussing, and he didn't need to be like he just wanted to watch. And
He spent so much time on his play mat that then I started feeling stressed that I was letting him like play independently for too long. And I was like, I'm not stimulating him enough.
Yes.
And and you know what? He was just a happy little boy.
there's so much stress in motherhood already. Like, when you
So
just
much guilt.
when you put so much stress into this too, it's not fun anymore. And it's so
No.
much fun to watch them learn new things. Jordan's just now figuring out like different shapes. She's really into circular shapes now and putting circles in circles. I'm not really sure why. And textures is another thing. She's really into, so she goes around everywhere and like pets different things
That's
now.
so fun. Does she like the little touch and feel books?
Yeah, so she loves the touch and feel books. We have some cards from Love Everly, and she also just like will go and just like touch different fabrics and it's just so cool
fun.
watching. I mean, we did zero things to work on this. She
Something she likes.
just found out, and now she's really interested, and it's just
That's so fun.
it's fun to watch it. So when you try to like take a step back and just watch and love and appreciate your baby, it makes it a bit more enjoyable.
Definitely way more fun. So with that, let's talk about our experiences. So
Yeah.
Jen, tell us about your experience with Milestones and what you felt and how.
Yeah, I mean, I stressed about it because I stress about a lot of things.
Why not?
But it
Gives us
helped.
something
Like,
to
we
do.
had a good mom group, and that I never felt judged for anything. I never felt like we were playing the comparison game. Like, we would genuinely ask out of curiosity and just interest, like, how's Henry doing? Has he moved yet? Like, have we seen any movement? He's still loving it? Great. Like, as long as he's happy, as long as they're growing, like, those are the important things. And so we had a lot of support, which was good. But Jordan was kind of on the early side for a lot of the like gross motor development. So I didn't have to like, I never had too much like waiting time where I was like, oh, she's supposed to be doing this and she's not, because she did all these things fairly early. She got her teeth really early. Like, you know, she was on the earlier side. I mean, there's pros and cons to that. We teethed very early and it was terrible. Like, I don't know. I don't know when a good time is for them to teeth. But
Never.
it is awful.
Like, why can't they just get dentures?
It is just awful. Anyway, so that was, I didn't have, like, I can't really say that I stressed too much about it because it just was happening.
I think you still found things to stress about.
I mean, I did, because
Yes.
I'm finding a lot more now that I'm stressing about. I'm like, okay, she's doing the big things, but like the waving and clapping, I'm like, oh, she just doesn't want to do it. Like, I've worked on it every day for a long time. My husband's been working on it for weeks now, clapping, and just,
And she's like, Mom, buzz off. I'll clap when
she
I wanna
watches
clap.
us. She loves it when I do it with the stuffed animals, but like, she's done it twice where she's brought her hands together, and I'm just trying to like let go of my worry and be like, she's going to do it at her own time. Like, who cares if she doesn't like clapping yet? I've met other kids who are over a year old that they don't clap either. Like,
For sure.
they're just going to develop it at their own time. So I'm kind of stressing more now than I used to do at the beginning. But again, I think just having an important aspect is having a supportive, understanding group of friends that even if your baby is last to do something, there's no judgment, no shame. You're still comfortable hanging out with them. Like, it was just one of those things that got me through all of these milestone things. And it also never ends. There's milestones forever for your children.
Literally forever.
It never ends. So you may as well find a good group of friends now, because they can help you, support you, and stop you when you're freaking out. Like, we have to do a lot of that too in our group, that we're like, okay, there's no need to worry. Like, you can bring it up to your doctor if you have concerns, but we don't think, X, Y, and Z that's fine. Your baby's happy. They're gaining weight. They are hitting milestones. Like, I think you're okay. And we have had to remind each other that a lot of times.
Sure.
So I do find it stressful, but I just found a lot of support in our friendship group, and that was good.
Definitely. Good gals we got.
Yeah.
So for me, I was going to say Henry hit some of his milestones kind of on the earlier side, like teething.
Yeah.
He also, he did get them pretty early. I think he was around 5-ish months when he got his first few teeth. And then all of a sudden he just had 1,700 teeth come in at once.
Because why not? It's fun.
Porque no.
Yeah.
But then some of his motor milestones, he was actually on the later side, and I stressed a lot. I Googled so many times, what if my baby never rolls? There was one time I was furiously on my phone, and my husband's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm reading about how Henry has CP, cerebral palsy. And he's like, dude, he doesn't. And I was like, I know, but he does. And I was I legitimately convinced myself,
yes.
He's almost 7 months old. He's not rolling. There's something I'm using air quotes wrong. And I mean, if he did, we'd love him the same no matter what.
Totally.
And then he started rolling and at 7 months, which actually is later. And then he started crawling at 8 months and he has not stopped moving since. He is a lunatic now. So it just shows that I didn't need to stress about it, but I did. I felt like I was doing something wrong. I let him have too much floor time without me trying to get him to roll. Mm-hmm. It was all too much. Funny enough, I went to go see Dr. Amanda and I was like, he's still not rolling. And she gave me a few things that I could do to work on it with him. And within a day, he was rolling all the time.
Yeah.
So the support there definitely helped.
Yeah.
And then we talked about how he was a potato. At first it was cute and funny. And then all of a sudden I started stressing oh my God, he's going to be a late bloomer, especially since I was very early on the motor development as a baby. Mm-hmm. I was running at 8.5 months and he's not even I let myself feel shame and feeling judged and stressed about it when there was no reason to.
Yeah.
And nobody made me feel that way. It was all just myself. I just stressed a lot that something was wrong and nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
So we've been there. We find things to stress about for no reason.
Yeah. Even if your baby's early, you find things to stress about. Even if your baby's late, it's
definitely,
you're gonna stress no matter what.
For sure. So
try to get yourself a good support group. That I think that's one of the keys. Good support persons and your friends, and in chiropractic care, your family doctor, and naturopath, and OT, someone that's in your corner that can help you and talk you through some of these things, some of your fears and worries. It really does.
And
make
somebody
a difference.
to tell you
chill. Yeah.
They're fine.
Chill the F out. Just
I think that's
take a step back, and
that was Jeff's response when I was I'm in the hall Googling. He's like, dude, chill. Actually chill. And I was like, okay, you're right. Yes. We're fine. So in conclusion, milestones, are they really important?
I mean, to a very small degree, I think they are, because you just want them to be growing. As long as they are growing and developing, that's what's important. Does the timelines really matter?
Nah.
I mean, your doctor's going to tell you if they're super concerned about something. Definitely. And then that's when you can actually, not worry, but that's when you can start to be okay, what can we do? Get the support. What do we need to do from here on out? What are the next steps? But
because even if they're not hitting the milestones and they're not growing and they do have a delay, that's okay too. Yeah. We kind of need to change our mindset that being delayed is bad. It's just a thing. Some babies are delayed. And I don't know. Like I said, it's all rooted in ableism.
And it is getting better. And we have this conversation for other topics and other things. And we don't want to get into
the world
today,
our babies that are going to grow up in is going to be very different than the world that we all grew up in. And
it is much more understanding.
I love that.
It is much more okay to be unique and to be yourself and to be different. And that is freaking awesome. That is so great. That. You can actually be yourself with all your quirks and weird things and be it and own it. And people will love you for that. And that is pretty awesome that our kids get to grow up with that.
Definitely. So, we're happy about that.
Yeah.
So obsessing, tracking, being obsessed and hyper focusing on the milestones, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's actually quite uncommon for babies to have true developmental delays. So the amount of time that we both stressed about things, It's just looking back, I'm like, oh man, I could have used that time.
There was all these other stresses in my life. Why did I stress about that?
I could have spent that time eating cookies.
Oh, yeah.
And like Jen said earlier, the comparison game with Milestones, like it doesn't end. So
it will never end.
There's so many in the first year because they like have such like a quick developmental year. But then there's things like potty training. And then when they get older and they're in sports and activities and theater and dance and then grades and then getting into college and like when are your babies having babies? And it's honestly, it never ends. And I just hope what ends is like the need in our society to compare and like be better, air quotes, than other people. And like we said, the world's changing.
It is getting better, I think. Slowly, it's getting there. So
definitely. Yeah. So I think that brings us to our Mom Day mantra. I want you to say it today.
Okay. So today's Mom Day mantra is, you can't stress your baby into meeting milestones, but you can stress away the joy of motherhood. So really, you can't stress and just make your baby and force them to do something. And all you're going to do with that stress is take away all the fun parts of motherhood and joy and that just like overall just good feelings about when they can learn certain things. And when you're stressing about it so much, it's not fun anymore.
It's not fun anymore. And you might even miss things because of that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Jeff and I actually missed Henry's first bite of food because we were arguing about whether we should put the food on the table or hold it or put it in a bowl or a plate. And then all of a sudden we look and he's just eating.
And we're like, cool, we didn't watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful times. So don't enjoy. This literally goes for anything. It goes for feeding. It goes for sleeping.
Yes.
And man, I wish there was like a button, like an easy button to just like take away stress.
I know.
Yeah, no, there isn't one.
And I think, and everyone says, like my mom says, like, stress never goes away. You're always going to stress about your kids.
Yes.
Like it never actually gets easier, but I hope that you can find some tips and tricks and like things to make it a bit easier.
And to manage that stress and feel it less heartburn.
Yes. Yeah.
More belly laughs.
That's the goal.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for today.
Thanks
Milestones.
for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah. Join us on Instagram. We are posting lots of good reels and leave us a review. Honestly, we say this every week, but it really helps us. If you either leave a review, you can just hit the stars. Give us 5. Well, give us whatever you think we deserve. Yeah. But hit the stars, whatever. Subscribe to our channel. It all really, really helps. We want to meet more mamas and parents out there. So let's do it. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Happy Mom Day.
Bye.